Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. Well, continuing on with my series on 1980 science fiction, today I'm going to talk about the 1981 film Looker. Okay, you can kind of see the one of the posters for the film right there. This movie was written and directed by Michael Crichton, who was known as an author, more known as an author, but he was also starting to write and direct movies through the 70s and into the 1980s. And I talked about Westworld, which he had done, Coma, a movie he had done in I think '78. I did not talk about Coma, and then he did The Great Train Robbery, which is not a science fiction film, which also came out in I think the late '70s. But then Looker comes out in 1981. So a little bit on the film. So it stars Albert Finney as plastic surgeon who finds out that a number of his patients are being murdered. Okay, as he learns. Um, Dr. Larry Roberts is his name. He's a real high class surgeon in Beverly Hills. Like, he is sought out by celebrities, models, people in politics. He has a huge reputation with his work with the knife, you might say. And I like how the film starts out, where we get a lot of his doctor's office and just how high tech it is and how he runs it and how he deals with patients. I actually thought those scenes at the start of the film really worked well. Perhaps because Michael Crichton himself had medical training, was a medical doctor, so he kind of had maybe some inside knowledge of how offices worked and things like that. But anyway, once he learns about the murders, he discovers this corporation called Digital Matrix, which is taking the likenesses of models, mainly female models, for TV commercials and reproducing the images on computers with the intention of eventually replacing actors with what we would call today, I guess, AI imagery on a screen. So, of course, that's a huge deal today. We talk about deep fakes and how likenesses can be reproduced on with artificial intelligence. I mean, that's been happening for the past several years, and it's only got it into the culture more and more. So Looker was really ahead of the curve about this idea of what computer technology, with the money of these corporations, and what they can do with creating, artificial intelligence imagery on screen. So, and I'll probably get into this more later, where this is an example of science fiction really being prescient as far as the subject matter it's getting into. But at the same time, for the movie itself, though, it falls into so many cliches of science fiction, where it's, I think most people, and I think most people would share this opinion today, some great ideas in this film, but at the same time, and I'll talk about this, it really becomes more of an action movie as we get towards the end, which is very Michael Crichton, which was his niche, where he would take a new kind of high-tech concept happening on the cutting edge of science and build a potboiler novel around it, like he would do with like novels like Congo and Jurassic Park and just a few examples. So they start investigating these murders. We learn more about this corporation, where James Coburn is the slightly devious CEO of the corporation, and also Lee Taylor Young plays. She is also involved with the use of this technology for the corporation. Another big theme in this movie, and Crichton talks about it in his commentary, is how the prevalence of TV commercials, and definitely in the early 1980s, the media landscape has changed a lot since then, where most people only had maybe 4, 5, 6 channels, limited options, and you would have to watch a lot of commercials. Any TV program you watched, you would have to see the commercials. And someone did the math of how many hours the typical TV viewer would spend watching commercials in the early 1980s, and what is that doing to our brains, and of course today screens have only become more and more prevalent. Talking about TV addiction in the 80s or TV manipulating people almost feels a bit trite today, but you can see how much bigger that idea has become. Advertisers just demanding our attention constantly. And the idea in the film is that advertisers are going to use this technology for TV commercials at first to have absolutely beautiful people, attractive people in these commercials, but at the same time, getting people to buy the product, whatever it is they're selling, whether it's soap or cereal or whatever the and there's a lot of scenes in this movie that I really liked where we see behind the scenes stuff on the making of TV commercials. And I really feel like that's kind of an untapped part of pop culture history sometimes, is the making of TV commercials, because there were so many of them made in the starting in the 50s all the way into the 80s, really through the 20th century. I feel like that's something would be interesting there. Like a TV show like Mad Men got into that a little bit, but I think it's a fascinating topic. And so many filmmakers started out making TV commercials, so that's something there. But that's I think the movie does a really good job of that, of how manipulative TV commercials and how sophisticated the manipulation was, and how this idea of using CGI technology to steal the likeness of people is, such a prevalent theme in the film. There's some other high-tech technology in the film where we have these laser guns that flash lights at people, and it can make you black out for 20 minutes or whatever, and you can't see what's going on. I guess the Men in Black movies would kind of do a similar thing with the flash they would do to make people forget what they just saw, and that's one thing. We also get kind of motorized robots in the movie, which are used for maintenance at this corporation's building. So there's all these little tech things that are also in the movie, and also at the plastic surgeon's office, so there is the prevalence of hardware and tech is just everywhere throughout this movie. Now with the murders, unfortunately, the movie never quite spells out why these models are being murdered necessarily, other than the fact it's suggested that they were promised money for letting the company use their likenesses, or some reason, but that part of the plot doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense, but I guess it does add this thriller element to the story, and there is kind of a Hitchcockian vibe to the movie as well, where the way it's in suspense. There's this ridiculous car chase in the movie. At one point, Albert Finney, bad guys are after him, and he's driving, and he almost hits a bunch of nuns, and these nuns start cussing him out. It's really funny, but that felt like a moment in a Hitchcock movie where you have this insane thing happening, and then it kind of runs into real life, and it becomes kind of absurd and comical, and there is this car, and this is worth the admission alone, this car chase where Albert Finney is being chased by henchmen from the corporation, and they both have these laser tag guns they're trying to fire at each other to get them to black out while they're driving, and the scene actually goes on for a long time as well. Tim Rossovich plays the henchman, who was a former football player, so that, and he's actually kind of good as this henchman in the movie. But I was thinking about in real life, what if you saw that two middle-aged men in a high-speed chase appearing to be playing laser tag? I just found that absolutely hilarious, and that scene might take some people out of Looker, but I don't know, it has its charm, old school charm, I suppose. The film also gets into, I think, the objectification of beauty, and how our culture handles beauty and sets standards of it. it's not, you could say this is the male gaze at work, but there is a lot of scenes in the movie where the camera is lingering on these beautiful models who are being put in these TV ads. But I mean, I guess you could say that's commenting on just how female beauty especially is used for commodification so much in advertising and all parts of pop culture. So there is some commentary on that in the movie, which I think works. It's not the focus necessarily, but it's there. It's kind of creepy if you think about it, and and like there's this part where Susan Day has to go into this chamber, and it's very invasive of what these computers do, and how the company treats these young women. So there is that aspect of the movie that has some current day relevance to it, no doubt. But yeah, it's very Michael Crichton, a movie that's on the one level, as I said, ahead of its time, but also schlocky, very schlocky on another level. But I had fun watching Looker, and if you're into sci-fi of this era, it's definitely one checking out. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Looker. You can find, I have my Letterboxd, I think, on my YouTube page, and that's there if you want to follow me there as well. And I also have some other places you can go on social media to follow me. So anyway, and I also have a playlist I did for my 70s movies, my series on 70s science fiction. I did post as well. So yeah, so anyway, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.